if I could snap my fingers and change something about the world, it would be, and my friends know this, to remove all the billboards from the planet. But if I could snap my fingers again for a second wish, it would just be that we eliminated 50% of packaging.
At Breaking Barriers, we're documenting how meaningful change happens in packaging and materials through candid conversations with the people doing the work. All right, so I'm gonna read this because it's one of the most impressive bios that I've had ever read, honestly.
No.
And I really mean that. I've read some pretty cool bios, but we are super excited to have Julia Marsh here. You didn't set out to be a climate entrepreneur. In fact, you started as a designer creating packaging for consumer brands. But the deeper that you got, the more you saw the contradiction that the creative work that you were doing was fueling the very plastic that you wanted to eliminate. So Julia did something rare. She stopped, she reimagined, and she rebuilt. Out of a graduate thesis at the School of Visual Arts came a simple but radical idea. Could seaweed replace plastic? 4 years later, that idea is Sway, a venture-backed startup making compostable, marine-safe packaging from ocean-farmed seaweed. Julia's team has already won the Tom Ford Plastic Innovation Prize, Beyond the Bag Challenge, and recognition from Fast Company as one of the world's most transformative ideas, with brands across fashion, food, and consumer goods. Like I said, one of the best intros I've heard. Her story is about design as activism, business as a tool for regeneration, and the belief that the materials we use every day can give back more to the planet than they take. Julia, welcome to Breaking Barriers.
So happy to be here.
How would you best describe your job?
As the CEO and co-founder of Sway, my job really is to be a champion of our seaweed materials, to hopefully inspire our R&D team to continually iterate and invent new materials, to really support the development of the entire supply chain from the ocean to the soil, and then to get these materials into the hands of amazing brands and eventually people like you and me who are just shopping and hoping to do better by the planet.
That's awesome. But how would you describe that to a 5-year-old?
It's an all-day job.
All day?
Yes.
What about at night?
It's kind of sometimes an all-night job too. But what we're trying to do is get pollution out of the ocean and make new materials with seaweed, which is really fun.
I gotta tell you, I think the most impressive part of your background is truly the fact that you didn't come from this industry. So why seaweed?
I grew up next to the ocean, so there's a personal connection. I think some people think seaweed is gross. They'll think of it on Cape Cod. It's the thing that smells bad, that attracts a bunch of bugs. But my experience with seaweed is it's this kind of underwater forest or garden where all these creatures live. So from growing up, I was enchanted with the ocean. And in my career as a designer, I was more pragmatically looking at what are the materials that can regenerate this planet. And my attention turned back to the ocean because seaweed is so abundant, it can be farmed responsibly, and it has this plastic-like quality. So was there an opportunity there to kind of lean in and learn some science and and work with some really great engineers to find a solution?
But what drew you or gave you that initial concept? Were you specifically looking for something that was regenerative from the ocean since you had that connection? Or, because there are other marine compostable materials that are used. So what was it about seaweed that particularly caught your eye?
I did look at all the materials that met this criteria of regeneration because I wanted the feedstock for whatever future materials I was designing with or helping to invent. I wanted them to replenish ecosystems. So they should be coming from, mushrooms or trees, or they should actually be upcycled materials like that maybe have a storied history as, but banana stalks or leftover pea protein or whatever. But seaweed really in that list stood out. It was obvious. It was like, I know this. And then it turns out that there are all these really great properties that seaweed has too. So it was definitely an exploration, and it was meeting with a lot of different material innovators and people who knew better than I did. But yes, once you fall in love with seaweed, you never go back.
I assume you also eat seaweed then.
And I'm a fan of it.
All right.
Yes.
So it's all full circle.
We're in a seaweed renaissance.
I've actually always been a fan. So
seaweed for packaging materials is just one thing. You can eat it. It's in your skincare. It's in your shampoo. It's in the donut glaze. It's in your beer. It's everywhere.
It's in the donut glaze.
It's in the donut glaze.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So how did you? I mean, you start with design. You talk about meeting engineers. What did you do? How did you get to meet these individuals that ultimately became part of your team and part of that research?
Before we had a material, I thought as designer, it's my responsibility to create a whole system approach. So if we're wildly successful, what happens? And so actually we didn't get to the material science for quite a while. I mean, part of the origin story is that I did make prototypes in my kitchen in Brooklyn using seaweed that I ordered off the internet, and my roommates didn't. Actually, I think in retrospect they loved it, but at the time it was like mad scientist.
Yep.
And I made prototypes that kind of looked like plastic, and I thought, if I can do this, certainly someone from the plastics industry can really make this work. So that was kind of the origin story, but in the beginning it was, let's think about the system. And if we work with seaweed, can we do it responsibly in a way that benefits the planet? If we create compostable materials, what are the criteria for them to actually be impactful and actually solve part of the plastic problem? And understanding the landscape and building out the supply chain and laying all that foundation came before we actually seriously developed any material.
Interesting. And so your look into making the technology and that design, that system design, was the goal, did you have a certain set of parameters that you were trying to achieve, or what was the ultimate goal? And how did you come to packaging?
Well, I was a packaging designer,
Right.
so working in the design world with brands, packaging is my favorite. It's like the first thing it's like opening a gift. It's the first thing that sparks kind of excitement, and it can be gorgeous. It's the thing that makes you choose, whatever product off the shelf. So I love the impact of packaging. Maybe more so than the function, it's like the experience. And so I felt like we had to align the joy that you feel when you see that gorgeous packaging with the materials that it's made from.
And you didn't think about for a second leaving the packaging industry, even though that's where your background was?
I think that there are a lot of amazing opportunities for biomaterials that sit outside of packaging, but packaging was my bread and butter.
Yeah, it's what you knew.
Yeah, it's what I know. Yeah.
Interesting.
So in those early days, it was, yes, let's figure out this gap in packaging right now where we have ways to eliminate packaging. We have reusable solutions. We have truly recyclable solutions. We have great fiber-based options, or aluminum. Where are the places that biomaterials can really fit in? And then what are maybe the shortcomings of some of the bio-based alternatives today? Can I support this overall movement through performance or function or end of life or whatever else?
And so did you look at some of those shortcomings and that's where you optimized?
Yeah.
Can you talk more about that? How did you find what shortcomings were worth addressing?
We interviewed a lot of brands early on.
Okay.
I did a lot of the research as a grad student, so I had kind of this golden ticket that made people talk to me. And I asked, really, what are the reasons that you say no to bioplastics today? And over and over again, it was, they're too resource inefficient or too resource consuming. I think that's the common feedback for some of the alternatives, like corn, potato, sugarcane, even tree-based solutions. They don't perform well enough, so they break, or they're not able to be durable through all different kind of international shipping contexts. And then finally, they decompose too slowly. So I've learned actually a misconception, but a lot of the feedback was, we want a material that's guaranteed to decompose as quickly as possible at this like home compost level to insulate us from risk. So those were the three that we really focused on addressing with Sway.
And how quick does the packaging decompose?
Well, our material is designed for home compostability. Yeah. So we've always maintained that standard, and that's less than 180 days according to TUV.
Cool. And so for brands that have packaging that maybe has been there for, let's say, 2 years, and needs a shelf life of 2 years, how do you address that?
We're starting with applications where the material makes sense, and we're not doing food packaging yet, although I really want to, but we're starting easy. So we're working with fashion brands and outdoor gear companies, and a snowboard can sit on a shelf in our package for years. It's when you expose it to microbes and heat and moisture that it starts to decompose.
Sure. And everything that you guys do when you start producing, are you doing that through partners? Are you doing that in-house? What's the overall goal for Sway?
Yeah. Well, my goal is to make it as easy as possible for people to do business with us. So, and I want to take advantage of all the infrastructure that already exists, and I want to enable the plastic industry to be our partners in the change. I feel like the best solutions say, hey guys who've been doing this for decades, can you please be part of the change? So we do all of our manufacturing with traditional plastic manufacturers in the Midwest, on the East Coast in the United States, who've been running plastic for decades, and now they're running seaweed.
So you're an enigma in that space. I think most people, especially when they're making bio-based materials, are typically screaming and hollering that the plastics industry or whoever is kind of like the devil. So when did you realize that you were going to use the plastics industry to kind of be that catapult for you?
From the very beginning. That's part of the design system approach, is how do you actually enable change at the scale and the speed that's needed? You take advantage of what's already there. And obviously there's a lot of room for modernization, but we've designed a technology that can work on any plastic manufacturing equipment around the entire world. And we've already proved that out. We can manufacture in China, we can manufacture in Greece, and manufacture all the same equipment. So I feel like that's the best avenue to actually make the change, is if you can make the people who seemingly are opposed to the solutions actually become the biggest advocates.
So in other words, because you are selling them the feedstock, like the pellets, they're now able to make products and actually advocate for that package. It's quite a brilliant approach. And what's been some of the feedback? Have you heard plastic manufacturers who have been vehemently against it for any reason?
I think there's always skeptics. I'm based in California. I think that a lot of the stereotypes are fair.
Okay.
But once they run the material, you can hear how I'm talking right now. I'm like, hey guys, are you stoked about this material?
Definitely comes out a little.
And initially they're like, no, we're not. But then they run the material and then it works. And it's usually not perfect out the gate, but by the end of the day it is. And then their eyes kind of widen and they're like, oh my gosh, actually, can I get a Sway vest? This is so cool.
And what are they trying to make? What is it that you're often trialing the most? I know you said e-commerce, fashion, packaging for those types of industries, but what is it that really lights the eyes up of some of these plastic manufacturers and tells them, oh my God, we just unlocked something huge?
Our model actually is that we mainly sell rolls of our film to packaging distributors, but we also can sell the pellets. So right now, the focus is on solving e-commerce hurdles for the most part. Polybags, there's 180 billion of them produced in the fashion industry every year. Less than 3% are recycled. A lot of brands try paper. For some it works, but a lot of them are distributing internationally through these sharp metal chutes. They've got clogs or they've got wetsuits inside of these bags and they're being punctured. So again, the purpose of this material is to kind of bridge the gap where we don't want to work with plastic. We know it's polluting, but also the alternatives, for one reason or another, are kind of falling short. Like, how can Sway help solve that? So help bridge that gap. So we're starting with really simple bags, but I'm excited to get to all kinds of new applications, stand-up pouches.
And they're not that simple.
Wrappers, all kinds of different flexible plastics.
The bags, they have to be heat sealable, right? I mean, ultimately you have to find a way to actually enclose the whole thing. So it's quite complex when you actually think about it.
Yes.
It's not that simple.
Oh, no, it's not simple at all. Yeah.
But the final product.
It's the simplest, to start with.
And so with bags, whatever it is that you want to do, food packaging in the future, what's the ultimate goal? Do you think that seaweed can really become the main mono-based material that's used by a lot of brands to unlock this new age packaging?
No.
Oh, wow, I was not expecting that answer. Why not?
I don't think it's the main material. I think it is a tremendous, globally scalable opportunity that can address a huge market. But I do not think it is the market, the solution. I think it is a solution in a sea of solutions.
It's interesting. It's a super pragmatic approach, and I'm delighted to hear it, because oftentimes when you hear from other entrepreneurs, they're a little rose-colored glasses are on, and they think that their world is going to change entirely because of their solution, which oftentimes it does, and that's what it is required. Where's that pragmatic approach come from in your mind?
I just think nature's diverse, the solutions have to be diverse, there's no one size fits all. If I could snap my fingers and change something about the world, it would be, and my friends know this, to remove all the billboards from the planet. But if I could snap my fingers again for a second wish, it would just be that we eliminated 50% of packaging. I think it's needless. I think there's so much excess in the way that we package things today because we've ingrained ourselves in this, actually, I think, thoughtlessness around packaging. Oh, it's always been in a bag, so why would we change? So there's so many ways that we can just eliminate packaging, and then I think the role of Seaweed is to fill in the gaps where packaging is really necessary.
Do you see that minimalist approach in packaging something that brands need to adopt first, or do you think that's going to converge at the same time as alternative materials come out?
I think that if you are looking at a harmonious suite of solutions for your packaging problems, starting with minimizing the packaging footprint to begin with is a great first step.
Yeah.
And then looking at what are the essential packaging solutions and how do they address the needs of EPR or any regulation? How do they address the ease of use and customer understanding? How do they do the job the best? And look at how, fiber and reuse and recyclability and compostable materials, including SWAY, can fit into that family. And then I think you're more thoughtful about material use and is it actually in the right place?
And is there a world in which the material can be used, as you mentioned, a film for barrier properties on existing packaging?
It can.
There you go.
Yes.
And so is that the ultimate goal, where you take maybe some brands that want to stick with a fiber-based package, but you use SWAY's film to give additional barrier properties?
Yeah, I love places where our technology can be used really strategically. It doesn't have to even be the majority of the finished product, but it can do an important job. And I love opportunities where compostable materials can improve the performance of fiber-based solutions. This is something we have in common. I love opportunities for a finished package to be both compostable and recyclable, which preliminary research shows that we can maintain recyclability when we laminate or coat our products onto paper-based solutions. And I love when compostable materials can also be reusable. So if you get a dual function or you get a dual end of life, by further utilizing our tech, I'm happy,
And what do you want that extra layer or extra barrier to do in this packaging?
Seaweed inherently is oleophobic, so we're looking at grease barrier primarily. But what you also get when you use our technology is abrasion resistance, which can be really helpful for different products that maybe are less related to food, but are higher value, like electronics or luggage or heavy items. And then you also get greater elongation or strength, so the paper can flex or bend to address whatever weight is inside of that product.
That's one of the best properties of alginate, right, is the fact that it's actually flexible.
It wants to.
And a lot of bioplastics aren't. So is that another feature that you guys are trying to go after, is understanding, okay, we can give you these barrier properties, but we can also make it this functional package that has a lot of versatility.
Yeah, I would rather go in and be targeted with how our material's being used. Obviously, right now, we're trying to just do, as we mentioned, the simplest thing, but as we mature the technology, I just really want it to be strategic in solving specific performance challenges. And oh, by the way, it's compostable and recyclable and whatever else.
Yeah, so you lead with performance and functionality, and it just so happens to be sustainable.
Yeah.
That's the same approach we have, so I get it. It's a tough sell, though, for some people. Have you noticed that brands will put you through tougher testing than maybe some of the alternative materials that they've been using, the incumbent technologies?
Yeah, but I don't blame brands for really wanting to de-risk the new tech.
Yeah.
I agree that the standard is very high, but I think our best partners have said, we see the vision And now we really want to make sure that the entire company can get on board. And this is how we're going to enable that to happen.
And it's a great reduction of risk if
Totally.
anything does go wrong, of course. How do you balance that, right? How do you balance going after brands that are telling you, hey, we love this, but it's going to take quite a bit of time. And on the other hand, you have a business to run.
This is the crux of being in this business. This is the hardest thing. So at Sway specifically, in the beginning, when we first launched our core product, which is TPC Flex, we said to some of the fashion and outdoor brands that we've been working with behind the scenes, are you willing to publicly test these materials and showcase that they work prior to adopting them and switching out all your packaging? And so we formed something called the Sway Innovation Coalition, which included Prana, Faraday, Florence, and Alex Crane, all of which create products with sustainable materials and wanted their packaging to echo that. And they all tested our polybags, and they all functioned really well, and the feedback was glowing, and they saw positive returns in terms of the performance of the product, but also customer reactions to our material. And so that kind of helped alleviate some of the risk that we were showing to other smaller brands, and it all snowballed from there. So working with smaller mission-aligned brands can be what gets us off the ground while we're continuing to navigate these more complex, larger organizations.
And where did you learn that strategy? Where did that strategy come from?
Some inspiration was the Milo leather campaign that was done with Stella McCartney, Adidas. It was a while back, but I loved their model where they showed Milo being used in so many different applications, whether it was a shoe or a purse or whatever else. And so that was kind of the inspiration, and it's a great tool. Yeah,
it was quite smart. And so what happens when a brand wants to work with you today?
Well, right now our model is you can talk to us if you want to really do something custom or design a unique format. And then if you just want something standard, a poly bag, a handled bag, you can work through one of our distribution partners. And we work with both Eco-Enclose, which is a sustainable packaging supplier, as well as Atlantic Packaging and a New Earth Project. So both of them can probably solve all your problems. Not just working with Sway, but all your packaging needs.
Sure. So going back a little bit, we talked a lot about what solutions are looking like today, but when did you realize that you were part of the problem? Was it when you were a packaging designer, when you realized that you wanted to come up with something that needed to be less material, as you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, I really feel like designers hold so much responsibility for the materials that we wear, the materials that we interact with on a daily basis when we go to the grocery store, when we order products online. That was all influenced by design. And so as designer, kind of just realizing my power, I mean, it's amazing. I think that the phrase I always refer back to is one of my mentors and friends, Brian Collins. He says, designers make the future visible for others. So how could I use that power as designer to make a seaweed ubiquitous material future visible for others?
And at that time, when you were pondering on this, was the goal, hey, how do I make something more recyclable, or do I make this packaging compostable? What was the underlying thing that you realized needed change?
When you look at the circular economy outlined by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, it's about designing out waste and pollution, keeping materials in use, and then regenerating nature. And it felt like no one or not enough people had an answer to how you create packaging that regenerates nature. And so that became my obsession. We have to answer this piece and make it easier for people like me, designers, to say, I care about regenerating nature. It's our duty to future generations. What are the materials I can work with that meet that criteria?
So is the best brand that could work with you someone who's looking for recyclability, or is it someone who's looking for compostability?
Compostability.
Compostability. Because the reality is that you want the package, once it composts, to regenerate.
I want to see the biological loop completed. I think there are a number of ways in a more nuanced conversation that can happen, but the way we've laid out our model is we're sourcing seaweed from the ocean. while it's growing, it's doing all this good underwater. It's improving water chemistry, reversing the effects of ocean acidification. It's sequestering carbon. It's providing habitat. It's really resource efficient. You don't need to water it. It grows really fast.
Right.
There's all this goodness just baked in the beginning. Then you're using it as a foundational ingredient to replace plastic. And you're helping to address the harms that plastic causes when it makes in nature. And it's returning to nature through compost. So I love that there's multiple touch points that are regenerative about the way we've designed the material. And as we grow, we're going to be able to deepen that regenerative impact by, I'm maybe going too long now,
No.
but tying our farming relationships to restoration efforts, or tying our efforts to replace plastic to also enabling lighter materials to be used, or less materials to be used, or multi-use to be achieved. And then after the material's been used, when we really optimize our materials, we can maintain the nutrient benefit of seaweed and translate that to the end of life, so that you're actually giving back rather than remaining neutral after the product's been used. None of this is perfect yet, but that's kind of the vision of where we're headed, and we're going to be innovating nonstop to get there, to that kind of holy grail where we're replenishing the planet.
Well, the vision's far further ahead, I would say, than I think what you see with most packaging solutions, even the new age bio-based materials. For the full circle loop to be completed, and that to be the vision is quite unique. So
thanks.
Thank you for that. That's an awesome.
I hope it's contagious.
It definitely is. It definitely is. Based on all of this, what is your advice to those companies that are looking for a sustainable solution?
I think that packaging has to be defined not by the latest trend, but by what really makes sense for your actual supply chain. There are so many solutions around packaging as a service, material reduction, just really smart design choices that can enable better usage or better recyclability. So it's such a case-by-case basis. If you have products whose packaging are very likely to end up as pollution, compostable materials, including ours, could be a good answer.
I mean, you mentioned companies that are paying attention to waste streams essentially because of their packaging. Like if you're designing a product with packaging in mind and it gets thrown away at the end of the life of the product that is being sold, that's a great fit for Sway, which makes tons of sense. Are there other applications where maybe there is more reusable application, or the package doesn't get thrown out right away? How does Sway help those customers? I
love where compostable materials can support reuse cases, because then it's a win-win. And so an example of how our materials can be used multiple times over is as retail bags. They're durable, can be reused multiple times over while still maintaining compostability. For brands that may sell large products like a snowboard or a surfboard or a backpack, our material can serve as a dust guard after it's done its job in transit. So your customer hypothetically could reuse that sleeve over and over to protect the product. And then down the road, I want to develop more durable products that help solve some of those non-recyclable solutions, but that's further out.
For later on. Okay, and so anyone who listens to this, especially if they're in the packaging industry, what can we do to help?
Visit swaythefuture.com, subscribe to our newsletter, visit Sway the Future on Instagram, be an advocate for biomaterials. I think there's so much information out there, and no one wants to embrace nuance. And the fact of the matter is, we're drowning in plastic. It is urgent that we solve waste, and the solutions are out there. So be an advocate. Allow yourself to be less of a skeptic. Give things a second chance. Try things out, try them again.
It sounds like, to me, as we wrap this up, the biggest thing to take away for any listener who's in the packaging world is that the material, as you said, has many different applications, but it's nuanced. And if there's an opportunity for a company to think about what does better packaging mean, that's where Sway can really help. It's to figure out not only the design portion of it, but also implement a solution that is full circle.
That's the goal.
If you'd like to hear more conversations like this about sustainable solutions, visit impermeamaterials.com or subscribe wherever you tune into podcasts.